And I know YouTube is telling you that this is like October 9th at like midnight, but that is incorrect. That is not the day we are streaming at all. YouTube streams are kind of funky sometimes. I never really liked streaming on YouTube personally, but it's just to give you guys another option to enjoy the watch alongs and have a chat with me and just hang out. But we are currently streaming on Twitch TV and here on YouTube. Current date is October 11th, 2024. It is going about on 8 p.m. right now. No, I'm not watching SmackDown. Stopped watching all that WWE garbage until January when they actually decide to make better storylines and do some better writing. We will switch over to the live feed here so people on Twitch can see what's going on. There you have it. We are live. So, ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves. There's a couple things for us to talk about before we get started. This is our last drive-in with Joe Bob, Season 5, 2019, watch along, the Halloween Hootenanny, the final episode in the Halloween Hootenanny, the Halloween special from Joe Bob and the Last Drive-In Gang. This episode is Halloween 5. The Revenge of Michael Myers, which came out in 1989 originally. Okay. Now, the first thing I want to discuss. We got to clear up all these stupid-ass theories of why Michael is crazy, okay? Joe Bob is always trying to figure out the backstory. He's always trying to learn the method to the madness of Michael Myers. And there's been a lot of responses on Michael Myers is crazy and he's psychotic because he wants to have sexual fantasies with his sister. We are going to debunk those theories, all right? We are going to put an end to the bullshit and those nonsensical theories, okay? If you really think that Michael Myers is crazy because he wants to have sex with his sister, wouldn't he have stopped killing people the night after he kills his sister? Like, wouldn't that just make him not want to kill anybody else? Like, you say he wants to, you say he's crazy or he goes crazy because he has all these sexual desires for his sister, incest, if you will. But at the same time, wouldn't those all fade away after he kills his sister, Judith Myers? I don't know. Like I said, I really think that Joe Bob needs to get Rob Zombie on the show and have a chat with Rob Zombie, because Rob Zombie's movies, Halloween 1 and 2 from Rob Zombie, are basically an explanation to the entire backstory of Michael Myers. So I think if Joe Bob is looking for any explanation on why Michael Myers is crazy and why he does the things that he does, he should honestly be talking to Rob Zombie and be watching the Rob Zombie Halloween movies for that kind of explanation. Now, another thing, you guys know my theories. I have two theories, okay? The first is that the Michael Myers mask is created by Silver Shamrock, and that pretty much drives Michael Myers crazy. That turns him into a psycho. Every time he puts on that mask, excuse me, it's basically, to me, it's the same way that Thor picks up his hammer, right? Nobody else is going to have the same effect when they're using Thor's hammer besides Thor. Same thing with Michael Myers, okay? Nobody is going to be Michael Myers unless Michael Myers is wearing his mask. The mask created by Silver Shamrock. Second theory that I have. All of the Halloween movies are basically just Laurie Strode versus Michael Myers. They exist to kill each other. They exist to destroy each other. And they are neither successful in doing so. That is why there's always going to be another Halloween movie. That is why Laurie Strode and Michael Myers are always going to exist. Because they only exist to kill each other. Okay. Now, as I said before, this is Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, 1989. Okay. There was one more movie after this one, which was Halloween 6, called The Curse of Michael Myers. Slipped my mind because it's such a bad movie. Sometimes I forget about it. I do remember watching it back in the day, but personally, I don't recommend checking it out. It is one of those lower tier Halloween movies. Honestly, I would put Halloween Resurrection and even Halloween 3 above it. So here's the order, right? Here's the proper order. You have the John Carpenter movies, which are Halloween 1 and 2, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. You have my personal favorites, Halloween 4 and 5 with Danielle Harris, the Bay. Okay. Then you have Halloween 6. Okay, let's do it like this. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. And then after those movies, we have Halloween H2O and Halloween Resurrection. And then you have the Rob Zombie double feature, which is Halloween 1 and 2. And then after that, you get into the 2018 Halloween franchise, which is the Danny McBride trilogy. Okay, Halloween, Halloween Kills, and then Halloween Ends. Personally, I think Halloween Ends is the worst movie in the entire fucking franchise. So if there's any Halloween Ends fans out there, they're probably not going to like this channel too much. But thank you for joining me tonight. As I said, YouTube kind of messed up the stream. It is not October 9th, and we are not streaming at midnight. The current date is October 11th, 2024. It's actually Terrifier 3 Day. Hope a lot of you guys are going out there to check out the Terrifier 3 movie. I'm going to go watch it at the theater for my birthday movie this year. I actually don't get to watch it on my birthday. My birthday is October 18th, the day after my favorite rapper, favorite musical artist, Eminem. Eminem born October 17th, me October 18th, Libra gang, Libra season, you know what it is. But I'm actually not watching it on my birthday. I have to watch it on basically October 16th because that's the day when my mom is going to have off from work at the AMC Theater. She's a bartender there. Go grab yourself a nice cold drink at the bar if you haven't done so over at AMC Theater. Say hello to my mom. She's a very hard worker. Love her so much. Tonight we're going to be sipping on some Monster juice. This Monster Energy Aussie lemonade. For anybody out there wondering, absolutely non-alcoholic. Just the way I like it. Little bit of Monster for the stream tonight. Monster Energy Aussie lemonade. But yeah, I'm going to be watching Terrifier 3 on October 16th, which is basically going to be my birthday movie this year. So I'm really looking forward to that. Hopefully, if any of you have checked out the movie already, you're enjoying it. Because usually on Thursdays, all of the day before the movie releases, all of the theaters like Regal, AMC, Cinemark, IMAX, they'll do movie premieres on Thursday. So if you haven't already, hopefully you guys get some time to go check out Terrifier 3. I've been hearing really good things about it recently. I know it's violent, I know it's graphic. It's already been banned in France, so that's great to hear. But hopefully you guys are enjoying Terrifier 3. As I said before, ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves. This is our last drive-in with Joe Bob, Halloween Hootenanny, Halloween special. Joe Bob is going to be talking about the movie Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, 1989. Okay, it takes place 1 year after Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Both movies star Danielle Harris, my bae. Okay, absolutely love Danielle Harris in the Halloween franchise. Love it every time she decides to return. I know that she definitely came back for the Rob Zombie movies. She was Scout Taylor Compton's one of her best friends in the movie. But tonight, we're watching Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. And I cannot show you the movie in its entirety. We have to skip through all of those parts. You know how YouTube copyright is here. Maybe one day, chat. Maybe one day we'll be able to get to watch the movie in its entirety. I definitely hope so. Fingers crossed. But until that day comes, we're just going to listen to Joe Bob, talk about the movies, have some fun, and hang out together. So, let's take the fish off of the screen. And here we go, the final episode in the Halloween Hootenanny. Now, after this, I believe we're going to do another 4 streams in this month of October for the Halloween specials with The Last Drive-In and Joe Bob. So this isn't the end of the Halloween specials. It's still pretty early, but we do have about 4 streams remaining for Halloween specials just with The Last Drive-In and Joe Bob. And he's also doing another one this year, but I don't think we're going to be able to get to cover that one. But enough of the talking. Like I said, we can't watch the movie in its entirety. Hopefully one day we will be able to, on this channel especially, as I would definitely like to hang out with you guys and watch some Halloween movies. But for now, we're just going to listen to Joe Bob talk about them and hang out here with some Last Drive-In. So this is Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, 1989. Ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves, thank you so much for joining me on this October night. Once again, the current date is October 11th, 2024. It is 8:06 p.m. And I will now let Joe Bob, the man, the myth, the legend, take it away.
Okay, time for part 3 of the 2019 Halloween Hootenanny on Shudder. And why are we calling this a Hootenanny? Shouldn't we be singing if this is a Hootenanny? Don't you need Woody Guthrie raising money for dead coal miners or something at a Hootenanny? We're talking about Mexico, we're talking about Canada. Might as well show some Chinese movies, you know. They don't know what Hootenannies are in other countries, but the difference between a wingding and a Hootenanny, correct me if I'm wrong, but a Hootenanny has music, preferably fiddle music and clog dancing, because we're talking Appalachia. We're talking deep Appalachia, but the cool part of Appalachia. So, This Land Is Your Land, songs like that. Pete Seeger, Joan Baez, all those rednecks in Tennessee who banded together with Martin Luther King in the 50s. What was that place? The Highlander Folk School, Somerville, Tennessee, out by Sewanee. Miles Horton was that guy, the radical hillbilly, Miles Horton. Anyway, I guess this is a Hootenanny. It's an updated 2019 Hootenanny because we're not just bringing together black, white, north, south, hippie, redneck. We're bringing together entire nations, Canada, Mexico, the UK. I wish we did have some Chinese movies because you know what I love about China? When the movie flops, the director actually apologizes to the public. And the reason this is relevant is we're about to watch Halloween 5. Also known as Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, which should have been called Halloween 5, We Know You'll Pay Money for Another Sequel, so fuck you. And it was produced by a guy from Syria. I already talked about him, Mustafa Akkad. He was actually using the Halloween franchise to raise money for these big budget epics about Islam. That was his ultimate goal. And directed by a guy from Europe. Now, do you think a guy from the Middle East and a guy from Europe might miss a few nuances about the American tradition of Halloween in the Midwest? But Dominique Hautman-Girard, the director of Halloween 5, is from Lelacli, a municipality of Neufchâtel in fucking Switzerland, okay? They don't do Halloween there. They make watches. It's a watchmaking city in the Jura Mountains. They don't worry about Michael Myers. They're still arguing about the 30 Years' War. So when Dominique Hautman-Girard met Mustafa Akkad at the Sundance Film Festival, the first thing he does is he takes the script for Halloween 5 that used all those very promising plot points from Halloween 4, and he flung it into the trash can. And he told Mustafa Akkad that it was ridiculous and he could do better. And Akkad said, "Who do you think you are, Dominique?" And he sent him away. But 2 days after that, he hired him. So it was a conspiracy of Europe and the Middle East against America that resulted in what has become the most despised sequel, the sequel that made the least money of any Halloween movie in history, and the one that has 2 characters that the director didn't even bother directing because they were just stuck into the movie randomly by Mustafa Akkad. But did Dominique Hautman-Girard apologize for Halloween 5? He did not. As recently as 10 years ago, when he was off making German TV series, he was talking about how brilliant he was for humanizing Michael Myers. We don't want to humanize Michael Myers. In fact, at the last break, I was talking about how I want people to send in their theories of how Michael Myers got his superhuman powers. And those have already been pouring in, right, Darcy? Oh, wow. You are actually doing Day of the Dead. So the first person tonight that has done something that I asked him to do, and that's a great skull. Day of the Dead is all about skulls, but I'm actually revising my stance on Day of the Dead because I think we ought to just go back to traditional Halloween. Day of the Dead may be too complicated.
Good, because this is not Day of the Dead anyway.
It's not?
No.
It looks like Day of the Dead.
It's the weaponized mask that Tom Atkins wears in Halloween 3 when he's in captivity.
And you are now Tom Atkins. Okay. Darcy, this Halloween 3 thing is really getting out of control. You eventually have to accept that Halloween 3 was a failure.
I mean, like Halloween 5 was not a failure.
Well, we're trying to get Halloween 3. We are trying to get it.
Tom Atkins will come on the show if we get it.
I know, and that's an excellent reason to do it, and that's why we're trying to get it.
If you took the name Halloween off and just watched it as a regular movie, you'd realize that it's amazing.
Okay, you may be right. I need to rewatch it.
I know I'm right.
But right now we're going to do Halloween 5.
Halloween 5 sucks.
I agree with you. But maybe we can, learn something from watching Mustafa Akkad's Greatest Mistake.
Wow, that sounds fun.
Okay, Darcy. Before we go to the movie, though, I wanted to speak directly to that Chinese director who apologized for his crappy movie. There's a director named Tong Huatao, and he spent $57 million on a movie called Shanghai Fortress, big summer blockbuster this year. And it's about some youthful elite warriors who defend the world against alien invaders. And it looks a little like, or a lot like, Starship Troopers, which should have been a tip-off to the Chinese producers, because Paul Verhoeven spent $100 million on Starship Troopers, and even though it's popular with just about everybody I know, it still has not made its investment back after 22 years. So here's what the Chinese director should have said. He should have said, well, we were trying to do Starship Troopers with an Asian twist because we had the two Eastern versions of Casper Van Dien and Denise Richards. Remember, those were the stars of Starship Troopers? Once we had that casting, we had to go with it. In other words, turn it into a high-level studio meeting decision kind of thing. And actually, that's true, because the stars of Shanghai Fortress are Shu Qi and Lu Han. Shu Qi is a Taiwanese babe, just like Denise Richards, and Lu Han is a pop idol. He looks about 8 years old, to tell you the truth, which kind of cuts down on the eroticism of the love story. But it worked for Titanic, right? So everybody is panning Shanghai Fortress for not using classically trained Asian actors. I don't see Denise Richards or Casper Van Dien doing Shakespeare in the Park, if you know what I mean, and I think you do. So here's what Tong Huatao, the director, here's what he said after the abysmal grosses on the movie. In the past, there were members of the audience who did not like my movies. Okay. Tom, I'm interrupting you right there. Bad start. When you have a stinker on your resume, that movie ceases to exist. Somebody at the Beijing Film Academy was supposed to tell you this. But their criticism was always aimed at the movies themselves. But today I saw that some internet users are saying The Wandering Earth opened the door to Chinese science fiction and Shanghai Fortress closed it. Oh my God. 3 sentences in, he's already buried himself. Never mention somebody else's film that's more beloved than your own turkey film. 57 mil is nothing, Tom. There are studios that flush that much down the toilet 5 times a year. You should have gone with the still trying to find its audience line, That would have put the whole thing in limbo. Now you're saying, well, I screwed the pooch, All right, I am very saddened. Tom, you can't be saddened. You have to be all about, I make movies for me. It gives me great joy when people are entertained by my movies, my vision. This is where you do the, true to my vision stuff. All right. This showed not only their dissatisfaction with the movie, but that their hopes for Chinese sci-fi were dashed. As the director, I have ultimate responsibility for this. I am very sorry. Oh my God. Do you have no friends, Tom? Do you have nobody who could have talked you out of this? Do you not realize that Chinese sci-fi is not even a thing, that it's a made-up concept like Scandinavian crime drama or something? Is there some secret reason you did this? Are they going to put you in jail? You know, I have to assume that some of that 57 million came from the government, because in China, almost everything comes from the government. But I don't think they look at those grosses and send you to Kin Chin prison and, you know, cause your wife to start writing letters to Amnesty International. I don't think they go that far. Anyway, the good thing here is that maybe this is the beginning of a reparations movement for directors who steal our time. You know, if so, I'm waiting on Michael Mann's apology for Black Hat. Remember that? Unfortunately, when an American director pisses away 70 million, he doesn't say, I'm sorry. He releases a director's cut. You know, that's what Michael Mann did. You know, here's the movie that they wouldn't let me make. And then when nobody likes that one either, they say, I'm going back to the indie world where I can realize my full vision. This is the way it's done, okay? We probably shouldn't mess with 100 years of Hollywood history. But really, if we've entered a new era where directors can be stretched on the rack for wasting budget, I want my vengeance. Timur Bekmambetov, I'm talking to you. I mean, I had barely recovered from Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, which only cost $69 million. When they gave you that $100 million Ben-Hur remake, where you strapped the GoPro cameras onto the horses, you know, it took not one but two giant studios, Paramount and MGM, to decide one of the most famous stories about Jesus should be made by a Kazakh who grew up in the Soviet Union. So yeah, you've got excuses, but I mean, come on, man, 125 minutes of togas and sandals, you can't even deliver on the chariot race? I expect a full and formal apology the way they did it in the heyday of Stalin. Okay, your turn, Marcus Nispel. I didn't say a word when you remade the greatest movie in the history of the world, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and you managed to get away with that by spending $9.2 million on a script that originally cost $50,000 back in 1973. So you get a pass because you had 184 times more money than the original, and that meant people did not hate the result, and the movie made $81 million. But Conan the Barbarian, that's a different matter. You should be hauled into court and forced to repay every cent of that $110 million. And Jason Momoa should be required to bring you clean socks every day when you fall behind and you get sentenced to fantasy remake jail. But I'll settle for a lengthy, humiliating public apology. And this would not include any remarks about what you were trying to do. You know, if you utter the words, the art of Frank Frazetta, at any moment, you will be executed. Okay, Cowboys and Aliens. Jon Favreau, the Iron Man films atone for many sins, but you really need to bleed for that $100 million. Okay, Paul Feig, there's a special place in remake hell for the man who destroys the Ghostbusters franchise with $163 million of Universal's cash. You're going to get additional time in purgatory for saying that you're proud that the film won an award. The award was the Nickelodeon Prize awarded by children. All right, are you no shame? All right, Joe Johnston, I'm going to assume that you were shocked by that phone call from Universal awarding you the director's gig on the $150 million Wolfman remake because, yeah, those Honey, I Shrunk the Kids credits, they don't really transfer to that, do they? And since you used the lamest reasoning ever during the post-mortem, the old, well, I was called in at the last minute on a troubled project excuse, I'm sorry, but we need you to be flayed 20 times in the public square of your choice. Okay. Or we could just ignore Tong Hua Tao and go back to the old way of doing things, which is just wait 20 years until your movie becomes an underrated cult favorite, and then you can hit the convention circuit, have a cast reunion, show your family that your movie was, quote, ahead of its time. All right, speaking of deranged behavior, our most sensitive maniac mass murderer, Michael Myers, is back for the fourth time in Halloween 5, which is notable for being the one where Donald Pleasance totally loses control and decides that maybe Michael will never be cured of his desire to slaughter 8-year-old girls with farm implements. And Donald is great in this one. Half his face is still horribly scarred from Halloween 4, actually from Halloween 2. and he's rampaging through the children's health clinic, grabbing little Jamie by the nape of the neck, saying, "You must help me. Your tears will do you no good. He must be stopped." And there's one scene where you expect Donald to drop kick the little girl into the next county just because she doesn't express the proper enthusiasm for killing and mutilating Michael Myers. All the other actors in Part 5 are eminently killable as well. They got that California yupster aren't we all cute jive, and they all have terminal bubbly. My only regret is that Michael never gets a chance to sit it off a few more body parts because he's too busy searching for little Jamie, once again played by Danielle Harris, who celebrated her 12th birthday on the set, even though she was playing 8. Versatility. All right. Part 5 will also be remembered for a few other things. Numero uno, the quote, bad kids in the movie, they have safe sex. They still get killed by the maniac while they're having sex, but at least they don't get AIDS right before they die. And more important, they don't kill any 22-second-old fetuses, that they may have created. I don't know why they have this safe sex thing. All right, numero 20. The kid who buys all the beer without an ID is the first kid to go. This shows you what happens when you don't obey our new juvenile drinking laws. A pasty-faced zombie comes to your house, rams a cleaver through your clavicle. Numero 30. Michael Myers takes off his mask in this one and sheds a tear. And then he remembers those box office figures on Halloween 3, and he starts slashing again. Numero 40, a new maniac, some guy in steel-tipped cowboy boots, comes to Haddonfield and springs Michael out of prison. So that guy is obviously the star of Halloween 6. I'm talking about it too. Let's just look at those drive-in totals, get this over with. 21 dead bodies, 2 breaths, bathtub stabbing, hacking, hanging, cleaving. Gratuitous mutilation of a 1967 Camaro convertible with a fresh wax job. Packing crate spiked foo. Pitchfork through the back foo. Skies foo. 2x4 foo. Driving Academy Award nominations for Danielle Harris as Jamie for having great epileptic fits whenever Michael Myers bombards her brain with rage waves. Ellie Cornell as Rachel for threatening to fall out of her t-shirt dress in every scene. Wendy Kaplan as Tina for throwing herself on Michael Myers and not living to tell about it. And of course, Donald Pleasance as the crazy Dr. Loomis for saying, "I prayed that he would burn in hell, but in my heart, I knew that hell would not have him." And Michael, it will destroy you too one day, this rage that drives you. You have to fight it in the place where it's strongest, Michael. Go home. Go home. 4 stars. I'm giving it 4 stars. You know how I justify the 4 stars? Any Halloween movie is better than no Halloween movie. It's the worst in the series. It's still worth watching. Joe Bob says, check it out.
4 stars.
See, this is what happens. This whole thing tonight is a mess. This is what happens when you spend too many weeks off the air. When was the last time we were on there? We don't know what we're doing anymore. We started out doing a Mexican thing, but it's called Hootenanny, which is an Appalachian thing. We're watching a movie directed by a Swiss guy. You know what we need? We need a piñata. We need a piñata. Because the weapon of choice in this movie, as you'll find out, is a 2x4. Now, it took a Swiss directorial genius to say, I don't want a gun. I don't want a knife. I don't want an explosion in the final scene. I want a big wooden board, which is what you use to break open a piñata, which is a happy Mexican thing. Wouldn't you agree? That's a happy Mexican thing. Okay. Even if you don't like Days of the Dead. So unlike these grinning skulls or whatever these things are, anyway, it's what I'm talking about. The piñata is really violent and it's happy. And it's also kind of cruel at children's birthday parties because the bigger kids just trample all over the little kids getting the candy. So it's like the greased pig contest at the rodeo. You ever see a small kid get the greased pig? Of course not. Piñata starts with incredible chaotic violence and ends with injustice. So let's do that. That's what we do here. All right. So Yuki, where's Yuki? Get a piñata, okay? Get a piñata for me. They use them in hootenannies and in wingdings. And get a big 2x4. You know, we're gonna streamline this thing. We're gonna make it some sense. And next time we're on the air, we're gonna have actual planning meetings. You know, because. You know, who thought this was, what is this? You know, who thought this is not what I asked for.
What's happening?
This is not what anybody wanted. This is like, the skulls don't grin. You know, we didn't do either one. We didn't do Halloween, and we didn't do Days of the Dead, and we didn't, and what is this? What is this? You know, we're not.
Just cuts to the movie. Okay, this is the beginning of Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Now, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves, we can't watch the movie because YouTube copyright doesn't like that shit, okay? Maybe one day when things calm down on YouTube, when we go back to the good old days, maybe we'll be able to see it together and chat about it and hang out, have a nice little Halloween hangout. But for now, we're just going to listen to Joe Bob talk about the movie, which I think is just as good. Let's get into my ranking of the Halloween franchise movies. So, obviously, Halloween 4 and 5 are my favorites, okay? It could be because of Danielle Harris. It could be because when I was growing up, they just held a special place in my heart. But Halloween 4 and 5 are probably my favorites. The Return of Michael Myers and The Revenge of Michael Myers. I would probably say Halloween 2 is better than the original Halloween 1 from John Carpenter. I just really like how tense and atmospheric and just how much of a slow pace Halloween 2 is compared to the original, the first one from 1978. After that, I would definitely put... Okay, so we have Halloween 4, we have Halloween 5. We have Halloween 2, John Carpenter, and then we have Halloween 1, John Carpenter. I would say after that, honestly, I would start getting into the Rob Zombie remakes, because I do like Halloween 1 from Rob Zombie, and then Halloween 2 probably underneath that from Rob Zombie. So my ranking, we have Halloween 4, we have Halloween 5, we have Halloween 2, John Carpenter, and then Halloween 1, John Carpenter, 1978. Underneath those, Rob Zombie Halloween 1, and then Rob Zombie Halloween 2. Me personally, I just liked how graphic and brutal the Michael Myers was in the Rob Zombie movies. I felt like he was way more intimidating and just way more forceful in the Rob Zombie movies, which I appreciated. Other than Michael just getting fucking pushed around like he's nothing in some of the Danny McBride shit and whatever. Underneath Halloween 2 from Rob Zombie, I would probably say Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Then I would put Halloween H2O underneath Halloween 3. And then when we get into the Danny McBride trilogy, I would say Halloween 2018 underneath Halloween 3. And then Halloween Kills. Okay, so what does that leave us with? It leaves us with the 3 worst movies in the franchise, in my opinion. With Halloween Resurrection, I would probably put underneath Halloween Kills. Which is worse? Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, or Halloween Ends? I'm going to say Halloween 6 is above Halloween Ends, because me personally, I fucking hate Halloween Ends, okay? I did not like that movie at all. If there's any Halloween Ends fans watching these watch-alongs and here to check out the channel, they're probably going to be highly disappointed, because I am not a fan of Halloween Ends. So the 3 worst movies are probably Halloween Resurrection, fucking Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, and then Halloween Ends in the Danny McBride trilogy. But that's my ranking. Those are my rankings, chat. Halloween 4, Halloween 5, Halloween 2, John Carpenter, Halloween 1, John Carpenter, 1978. After that, like I said, I really appreciate the Rob Zombie remakes. So Halloween 1 and then Halloween 2. After that, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Then, of course, Halloween H2O. Then, Halloween 2018. After that, Halloween Kills. And then, like I said, the 3 worst movies in the franchise, in my opinion, probably it would go Resurrection above all of them. And then Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. And then the worst Halloween movie in the franchise, in my opinion, is Halloween Ends from the Danny McBride trilogy. So that's my ranking for the Halloween movies.
Like a feminine sponge. Why there's feminine sponges all over the... All right. Clean this shit up. All right.
Clean this shit up.
I'm already confused by the movie, pissed off for other reasons, but the movie's pissing me off too, because Jamie killed her foster mother in the last scene of part 4, but what they show is the beginning scene of part 5 is not the final scene of part 4. It's the next to the final scene of part 4, where Michael Myers gets blown into a sinkhole by automatic weapons fire by the Illinois State Police, which we find out in this movie is not a sinkhole, it's a mine shaft. And then he finds a secret escape route into a river, and he meets an old coot hermit who takes care of him, only to be murdered a year later in a sequence that was not directed by the Swiss genius Dominique Hootenanny. It was actually directed by the producer, Ramsey Thomas, because his boss, the other producer, Mustafa Akkad, decided that the original version that Hootenanny shot with a young hermit should be replaced with an old hermit, thereby making Michael Myers more evil because of the age difference. And they actually shot that whole thing twice due to producer interference about an expendable hobo. So anyhow, and then we find out that little Jamie has not become a deranged serial killer herself, which would have been the logical outcome of the ending of part 4, but has instead been remanded to a children's hospital where she has lost her ability to speak, but fortunately is befriended by a young boy named Billy who stutters, and a girl named Tina who's the wilder version of her foster sister Rachel, the same Rachel from Halloween 4. And in the process, we learn that apparently she did not kill her foster mother. The mother survived, but now because we're in the hands of artistes from Europe, Michael Myers kills off Rachel, the most sympathetic member of the cast, right at the beginning of the movie, trying to do a Hitchcock thing. The way Hitch killed off Jamie Lee Curtis's mom in Psycho in the shower scene at the beginning of that movie. That leaves us with 2 clown cops enhanced by circus music. And thank God, Donald Pleasance is in the movie as Loomis, increasingly deranged, increasingly determined to pierce the mind of Jamie and find out exactly what she knows. Oh, yeah, I forgot this part. He has to find out what she knows through her ESP powers that are linked to Michael Myers' brain. All right, does that about sum it up? Ellie Cornell, the actress playing Rachel, was supposed to get a pair of scissors shoved down her throat in that big death scene, but she refused to do that. She thought that was an ignominious end for her character, and so the compromise was a stab in the sternum, as you saw. Plus, they gave her more money just to do the scene. Okay, Darcy, come on over. I know you've been getting a lot of people's opinions about why it's impossible to kill Michael Myers, and
Yes, I have. And these first 2 are fairly common. A lot of people say this one. First up is Caleb from Georgia.
Okay. Because he is Halloween. That's always what I thought as a kid. He is the personification of the holiday. Damn, Caleb, you knew the word personification when you were a kid.
And this one is Michael Herriger in Michigan.
Okay. He's the boogeyman. He's evil in human form. He just walks because he knows he doesn't have to run. Yes, Michael, I get that. But movies have to explain why things are the way they are. He can't just be like gravity.
I mean, maybe he can.
I don't like the way in this movie that they show him too much. They showed practically his whole body in that closet behind Ellie Cornell in that broad daylight scene. No fun. We're not supposed to see that much Michael Myers 10 minutes into the movie. So, all right, give me one more.
All right, Kyle Thatcher from Millville, Pennsylvania.
Okay. He has congenital insensitivity to pain and anhidrosis. CIPA, C-I-P-A. He literally can't feel pain. It even explains why he wears the plain white mask. It symbolizes both the internal and external void he experiences. He feels like a non-entity in a world of grotesque individuality. Woo! Medical explanation involving a birth defect. I like it. And definitely true, because I don't think he feels pain. So he just goes into comas in the off season, though. But keep going through these. I like these.
I'll be on it.
All right. More useless information coming up to clutter up your congenitally deformed brain. Because let's face it, you're watching this show on a Friday night. But right now, back to the movie.
It is a Friday night, chat.
And I have nothing against Switzerland, by the way. And people think I'm being hard on Switzerland. You know, I keep noting that Dominique Hootenanny Girard is Swiss, which he is. But I like yodeling, you know. Those giant cows. What do you call those? Simmentals. The big bells on their necks. Cheese. I like cheese, you know. Swiss Army knives. Swiss Army's famous for their knives, you know, so those banks where they keep all the opioid money, that's in Switzerland. Switzerland's great. They invented Velcro in Switzerland. We would be Velcro-less if it wasn't for the Swiss. So very resourceful.
And Danielle Harris having a little bit of a spaz attack right there when we cut back into the movie. Like I said, unfortunately, we have to cut through all of the movie parts because YouTube copyright will not allow us to show that shit whatsoever. Hopefully one day, chat. Hopefully one day. But we are going to fast forward to the next segment break here. Oh, looks like we've reached it.
The old garden claw to the paint job ruse. And the lame Richard Belzer lookalike dies a fitting death with a three-pronged farm implement to the face. You know, I wondered when I first saw this whether they really did mess with a 1967 mint condition Camaro convertible, but it turns out no, they put a fake hood over the real hood for that scratch moment. There are more guys who watch this movie, and the kills don't bother them at all in the movie, but the Michael Myers paint job destruction on that Camaro drives them up the wall. All right. I prayed that he would burn in hell, but in my heart, I knew that hell would not have him. Are we suddenly making an 18th century drawing room play for the court at Versailles? Who talks like that? But I do love the way Loomis is just brutal with Jamie. He won't let up. I'm surprised he's not banned from the hospital. All right, Darcy, we have some more theories about why Michael Myers is such a strong superhuman killer, able to teleport himself anywhere he needs at any moment. So
We do indeed. This one is from Victor Valor of Toronto.
Okay. My dude Michael loves fun houses and has nothing but time from November to the end of September to plan out elaborate setups. Okay, maybe, but he was in a coma all year. He wasn't planning anything.
Jennifer Manriquez of Fort Worth.
Since I subscribe to the pure evil theory, I always attributed Michael's supernatural stunts to a combination of adrenaline and Satan's blessings. I'm not accepting the pure evil theory. You can say that about any serial killer. Try again.
All right, hold on. James from Hubbardston, Massachusetts.
All right. He's everyone's fear called into physical form. Yes, but people actually die. He's not just a specter. Okay, so far the medical guy at the first break is the winner.
I have a lot more.
I want to hear all of them, okay?
Oh my God, we'll be here all night.
All right, so what? It's a streaming service. It's not real TV, right? So here's how Halloween 5 happened. I got to tell this story. Dominique Hootenanny Girard journeyed from his Swiss mountaintop to Iran, where his French painter father ran some kind of fine arts program in Tehran. And then he goes to the London Film School, and his first project there was an art film in Zurich starring Julian Sands and John Hurt about a schizophrenic and his brother who descend into madness together. A slow, plotting, gloomy film called After Darkness that I'm not even sure he directed because it has the rare double credit for direction. The other director is Sergio Gayraz, a totally unknown guy, credited as writer-director. So nobody saw this film except apparently Deborah Hill. And based on that, Deborah Hill introduces the Swiss guy to Mustafa Akkad, the Syrian owner of the Halloween franchise, after John Carpenter and Deborah Hill have already sold their interests and washed their hands of everything. And because Mustafa Akkad, he had to buy the rights from Carpenter, Hill, and also Irwin Yablans, who produced the first Halloween. So bottom line, he paid a whole lot of money to make everybody go away after Halloween 3. So starting with Halloween 4, Mustafa is calling all the shots. So Deborah Hill has nothing to lose when she introduces Dominique to Mustafa, knowing that English is not even the first language of either one of them. So Dominique goes to a meeting with Akkad, and Akkad brings two of his script guys, including the screenwriter of a screenplay that's been published that's pretty good. And to get ready for the meeting, Dominique watches all the Halloween movies, all the Freddy movies, and all the Friday the 13th movies in one weekend, indicating he had no idea before he got this meeting. And so at the meeting, he kind of sneers at Mustafa and he says, "Do you expect to do a Halloween 6 someday?" And Mustafa says, "Dominique, are you joking? Do you know who you're talking to?" Very angry. And then Dominique takes the existing script in front of the people who had written it, and he theatrically throws it into a trash can. And he says, "You can't do this. You will lose your position in the market because you are mixing genres. You are doing body count. You're doing dream killing. And this is not belonging to the essence of Halloween." I am quoting what he said. I have no idea what that meant. And Mustafa says, "Who do you think you are?" But Dominique asks if he can bring in his screenwriter, Robert Harders, who is standing outside the room. And so they call him into the meeting and they start talking through a new story in front of Akkad. So after 20 minutes, Akkad throws him out of the meeting. But 2 hours later, Dominique's agent calls him up and says, "You crazy son of a bitch, you got the job." But Harders, the screenwriter, can't accept the job because the money's so low. So Michael Jacobs ends up doing the screenplay. Now, the moral of that story is you should not tell that story unless the movie turns out to be a big success. The movie ended up sucking rather badly and not making nearly as much money as Halloween 4, but he tells the story anyway. It makes us think, damn, wish they'd made that script in the trash can. All right, back to the movie. You know, they use that pure evil thing. I hear people say that all the time. Crime shows, they're always saying pure evil. Prosecuting attorney, he'll always say, "I came face to face in the courtroom with pure evil. I now know what pure evil looks like. It's the face of him." And meanwhile, it's somebody who was hitting up a convenience store and he killed the clerk, you know. It wasn't pure evil, he was lame evil. You know, he was trying to get $200 in the ghetto. You know, nobody is pure evil. That's some kind of mythical religious concept. I mean, Barry Manilow, he's pure evil, you know. All I have to do is say the word Copacabana and your brain is fried for days, right? You know, that's evil.
3, 2, 1. Can you hear me out there? Testing 1, 2, 3.
Just a little bit of a shot there from Halloween 5, the Goblin Costume Pageant over at the Haddonfield School. We are fast forwarding here right to the next segment break where Joe Bob is going to talk about Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers from 1989. Now, obviously, Joe Bob didn't do this review in 1989. This is season 5 from 2019. So pretty much after the first Halloween 2018 from the Danny McBride trilogy. And here we are at the next segment break now.
Well, no respect for authority anymore.
It's the Terrence.
Yeah.
Hey! All right, Tommy. I'm through fooling around.
We can't show a lot of the movie.
Mask, and she's not figuring out why he won't talk to her. He floors it. They go squealing down the street, and then she asks him to stop so she can buy cigarettes. And he stops so she can buy cigarettes. That is a reasonable request in the mind of Michael Myers. The only thing that saves her life is she needs a hit of nicotine. So that's the first thing. Now, my second question is, why the safe sex message in the middle of the hot sex scene in the barn? That's Tamara Glenn as the blonde cheerleader type. And she was not only a cheerleader type, she was actually a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. Arkansas girl. She'd done lots of walk-on TV roles like Knots Landing, Growing Pains, Miami Vice, the Nightmare on Elm Street series, lots of commercials. And she actually founded that horror film festival that they have in Hot Springs, Arkansas. She left acting shortly after this movie was made. I'm not sure why. But she was apparently very frightened about doing that sex scene. The closer they got to shooting the scene, the tenser she became. The director, his reasoning was he thought it was too much partying on the set. And so he told everybody to back off on the partying, but he said the sensuality of the scene is mostly through the miracle of editing, because she was very tight, wouldn't really do anything. Her boyfriend in the scene, Matthew Walker, he's a very fine actor. He was mortified. He thought that she hated him. Okay, my third question, 3 jump scares in a row in the barn. 3, they have the kitten, then they have the guy jumps out of the hayloft. And then you think that's Michael Myers grabbing her leg, but it's her boyfriend grabbing her leg. 3 jump scares, including a cat. Nobody does a cat. Nobody does 3 jump scares. Come on, middle school kids in Idaho making iPhone movies would not do that. All right, Dominique Oatmont Girard apparently had a thing for directing sex scenes because he did quite a few. Beyond Desire. He made that movie about call girls and gangsters in Vegas. Private Lessons, Another Story. How many sequels are there to Private Lessons? 17 sequels to that movie. Red Shoe Diaries 5, Weekend Pass. The man was busy shooting naked flesh all through the 90s, but the last feature film credit that he has is in 2008, Dirty Money Undercover, French movie about a money laundering ring. He has a writing credit on Halloween 5, by the way. But if you ask him what was your contribution, Dominique, to the writing of the movie, he says, quote, to humanize Michael Myers, I guess by making him stop for cigarettes. Okay, Darcy, let's do some quickies and get back to the movie.
Oh boy, do I have a quickie for you.
What?
Okay, Tom, he's here.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Atkins?
Oh, yeah. He's not happy.
Hello?
Joe Bob, Tom Atkins. I was just informed that you're doing a Halloween marathon. Part of that marathon is Halloween 5.
Yeah.
And I was also just informed that Halloween 3 is nowhere in the marathon.
Well, that's also correct, Tom. And
You do not thrill me. The next time I see you, I will have to beat your ass.
you really did that.
You deserve it.
I can't
Show
believe.
Halloween 3.
Okay, Darcy, as I said, let's do some quickies and then get back to it. What have you got in the How Can Michael Myers Be That Invincible department?
Alrighty, we have Jesse Wilson from Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
You did that.
Oh,
All right.
he's so pretty.
He's a mutant like the rest of us. Healing factor keeps him young, strong, and hard to kill. He's a metahuman. See, all these are what you call extra-textual. There's no evidence for a healing factor. What's a healing factor?
Like, you heal fast.
I know, but there's no evidence in the movie for
Well,
that.
he's getting healed fast, so shut up. Thomas Canning from Dunfermline, Scotland.
From Scotland?
Yes.
All right. He's a geometry genius. He picks the right angle that lets him move at the slowest speed but still get there first. His body and clothes are probably caked in so much dried blood that it's created an unnatural armor to protect him. And he's just really big. You know, it is true that the guy who played Michael Myers in Part 5, Don Shanks, is a really big guy. He's 6'5", I think. And he's also the only guy from any Halloween film that I know of who is actually from Illinois. He grew up on a farm in southern Illinois, Peoria, Illinois, middle of nowhere. And he's also the only Native American to ever play Michael Myers. I think he's half Native American. But he had been the stuntman on The Life and Times of Grizzly Adams. He was a guy who wrestled those bears, all right? But we would know him as the guy who did all the killer Santa stunts in Silent Night, Deadly Night. That was also Don Shanks. Speaking of which, Darcy, I had this idea. If we do a Christmas show this year, I think you should be impaled on reindeer antlers.
Okay.
Because we can redo that scene, the Linnea Quigley impaled on reindeer antlers scene from Silent Night, Deadly Night, because that was Don Shanks who actually lifted her up in the Santa suit and impaled her on the antlers. So think about that.
Oh my God, I am like so down with that.
Okay, I thought you would be. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're way off subject. So feed me another one.
One more is Andrew Rivero of Sussex, New Jersey.
Okay. There's a theory that he has certain medical conditions. An enlarged adrenal gland could give him constant hysterical strength, and congenital analgesia would explain his base strength and inability to feel pain. Okay, another scientific explanation. See, these are the kind that I like. What's analgesia?
Painkillers.
So he's born with painkillers in his brain.
He's living the dream.
Okay. All right, Darcy. You're out of control in more ways than one. Let's go back to the flick. You know, there's a lot of sex in barns in slasher movies. Have you noticed that? There's a lot of scenes where they're having sex, they're rolling around in the muck, you know. Wouldn't you get hay all stuck up inside you, you know? That'd be worse than sand, like when they do those beach scenes. You know, you get all filthy, you're rolling around in, there's barnyard smells, there's mud on your private parts.
What happened?
Oh.
Sorry, you distracted.
Okay.
We got the Christmas specials coming up too in a few months. Once December arrives, we will be watching The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Christmas specials as well. But for now, we're doing October, and we're doing the Halloween specials. This is the final episode in the Halloween Hootenanny. Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, 1989. And like I said, after this, we have about 4 more streams remaining in the month of October for the Halloween specials from Joe Bob and The Last Drive-In. And it looks like we're at the next segment break right here.
So Donald Pleasance, the consummate actor, knew that this was his moment. This was the point of no return in the movie. So when he stood at the edge of the forest and spoke to Michael about Michael's rage, he was mostly using his own words. He rewrote that speech. And he asked Don Shanks, who was playing Michael, to go and stand in the woods, even though he was out of sight. They weren't shooting any Michael Myers footage that day. But Donald Pleasance just wanted to know he was out there in the woods. Notice that Dr. Loomis has lost all sense of ethics. He's about to use an 8-year-old girl as bait. And Danielle Harris was actually 12. She celebrated her 12th birthday on the set. And she was really put through the ringer in this movie. I'm surprised they could get all the scenes they got, what with her being subject to children's working hours. It also makes me think they missed a huge opportunity, though, when they failed to bring her back as a child psycho killer. The series could have gone in a really, really interesting direction. Wendy Kaplan, who played Tina, the one who just sacrificed her life there in order to save Jamie, she said she was awestruck by Danielle Harris, since the 12-year-old was far more experienced as an actress than Wendy was at age 23. So she called her the 45-year-old 12-year-old. Wendy Kaplan was doing her first movie. She had done a few small TV roles before this. She'd later become a regular on the Guiding Light soap opera. After Danielle Harris and her little boyfriend Billy, played by Jeffrey Landman, had grown up, they said many of the things they were asked to do on this movie were so dangerous they wouldn't do them today. And one of those was running in front of that car, because the ground was very rough. One mistake, you would be run over. And in fact, Wendy Kaplan was run over slightly, because she turned around to look back while she was running. She looked back at Michael Myers. She tripped, she fell, and the stunt driver slammed on the brakes, and the car came to rest partially over her prone body.
Jesus.
Jeffrey Landman, the guy who plays Billy, he was a theater guy. This was his first experience with running around in the woods. He was actually starring in Les Mis on Broadway at the time that he was cast as Billy in the movie. Okay, Darcy, you want to read a few more Michael Myers theories? Because this is supposed to be the, quote, most human Michael Myers of all the Halloween movies, mostly because of a scare that's coming up shortly. But
the most human version of Michael Myers. Now, the next time we have to skip through the movie, I will talk about something interesting that I feel like should be mentioned during this watch along. We'll get into some of these fan theories of why Michael Myers is the way that he is, though.
Give me whatever you got.
Oh, we got so many more. This one is Terry Morgan of Glendale, California.
Okay. Michael is the avatar of the audience's violent id. I already don't know what this means. And is thus free from the constraints of time and space. Not being actually real, he cannot be harmed, but will simply return at the audience's will. I don't think anything returns at the audience's will when you got a Swiss director who doesn't seem to care about any of the previous movies. You seen how big the house is, the Michael Myers house, compared to any other Halloween movie? All right, give me another one.
Alrighty, Vera from Minneapolis.
Anything is possible through spite.
She speaks the truth.
Really? You like that? You like that one?
I mean, it's true.
Well, who hurt him in the first place? Who was he being spiteful about?
No one has to hurt him. Spite has its own logic.
Okay. Any more?
Oh my God. Hundreds more. This one is from a bunch of people who conspired together to make this theory.
Okay.
And a lot of people agree with them. So we have Lee Evans of Tulsa, Pete Swords of Phoenix, who you know, and Boogeyman from Dayton, Ohio.
I actually have met Pete. He came to one of the shows, yeah. Druids, Stonehenge, and Druid magic. Curse of Thorn. Okay. Yeah, that's the tattoo on the wrist of the man in black, the same tattoo that Michael Myers has. But they're getting this from Halloween 6, because we haven't really talked about the man in black. We probably should. The guy with the steel-tipped boots and the overcoat who arrived on the bus, and you never see his face. That's a character just inserted into the movie by Mustafa Akkad that has nothing whatsoever to do with the story. It's just a way of setting up Halloween 6, which wouldn't come out until 6 years later in 1995. And you know why it didn't come out until 6 years later? Because the slasher era was over. You know, in this one stretch of the summer and fall of 1989, we had Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, lowest box office of any Freddy Krueger film ever made. Then we had Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, just a fraction of what Jason films usually made.
Jason Takes Manhattan, Friday the 13th, Part 8. One of my favorite Friday the 13th movies, obviously because Jason is in Manhattan, New York City. All right, Jason Voorhees in New York. I'm definitely buying a ticket. But as you can see, Joe Bob is explaining, you know, basically by the mid to late 90s, that was pretty much the decline to the slasher genre. It had pretty much moved on, and horror was becoming other things, especially around the late 90s. And once you get into the millennium, once you get into the year 2000, Blair Witch Project basically takes everything over, and it becomes kind of like the paranormal stuff, the ghost stuff, and the found footage era after that. Me, obviously, I love the slasher genre the most. It's my favorite when we're talking about horror movies. And then after that, I would also recommend cannibal, because cannibal movies are another one of my favorite genres in the horror franchise. Um, but basically, by the late 90s, everything was kind of becoming about ghosts and paranormal activity and fucking Blair Witch Project found footage movies. So,
And then in October, we had Halloween 5, and it turned out to be the worst grosser of any Halloween. So everybody was taking stock of the situation, saying, maybe we better just go straight to video in the future, or maybe not release them so fast. That's another thing they could have done, because this movie was rushed. And you know how I know it was rushed? Because everybody ever interviewed about it says, we started principal photography on May 1st, and the movie came out in October, but we never rushed. We never rushed or anything. You know, we just had to be efficient. So obviously, yeah, they rushed. It was a rush job.
they had like 5 months to get this movie done. Halloween 5 was basically made in a matter of 5 months.
All right, Loomis has just said something very irresponsible for a psychiatrist. He said, okay, Michael, you just killed 5 people at the Tower Farm. And why is it called the Tower Farm? Where is the tower? Do they ever explain that? So you've just killed 5 people at the Tower Farm, but we're here to help you. Just go home where it all began, and I'll have the little girl waiting for you. So, man, it's hardcore. Loomis is as crazy as Michael. So roll the film. The Halloween franchise now has, after the the sequel that came out last year, it has 5 different timelines. But that's not the surprising part. The surprising part is that I meet people at conventions who can tell you all 5 timelines without making a mistake. They save the Rob Zombie ones till the end, because those are different, you know. And they get upset about trivia, like in this movie, Michael Myers has black hair. And everybody knows that Michael Myers has blonde hair, you know? So I'm thinking he should have white hair, actually, like those guys in the mental wards with schizophrenia. They always have white hair. Their hair goes pure white. Like the Prisoner of Chillon, which Dominique Hootenanny would know about, because the castle of Chillon is in Switzerland. Have I mentioned that he's from Switzerland? You know, the Prisoner of Chillon was chained in a dungeon for, I don't know, long time, and his hair went pure white, which is what happens to mental patients. And if we wanted to get all scientific and medical, Michael Myers would have white hair. But then that might be excessively nerdy, like we didn't cross that milepost years ago. But anyway, you can actually visit the Castle of Chillon on Lake Geneva and go down into the dungeon where the Prisoner of Chillon wrote graffiti on the wooden post that he was chained up to. Is this too much information? But we know his hair turned pure white from, we know that from Byron's poem, The Prisoner of Chillon. If Byron didn't write the poem, then, he'd just be another weird Swiss guy, like John Calvin, but the Prisoner of Chillon, he was some kind of monk, who either, he disagreed with Calvin or agreed with Calvin. I don't remember which he did, but he was a blasphemer. And the Swiss were always throwing people in prison for not being reformed. We'll decide who God is. That's the Swiss, We'll decide who Michael Myers is. John Carpenter must be reformed.
Okay. It's a great shot here of the neighborhood. I can't show too much of it, though, because YouTube copyright doesn't like that shit very much. So, a couple things I do want to talk about here before we get into the next segment break with Joe Bob. Now, as Joe Bob stated, around the mid to late 90s, the horror slasher genre was pretty much fading off, and it was all but dead and gone. Obviously, moving into the millennium in the year 2000s and forward, you still had people trying to bring back that slasher genre and still making attempts at it. There's movies like Hatchet. Obviously, even today, one of my favorite horror slasher films of all time is the Terrifier franchise from Damien Leone. I mean, you had movies like Hostel. You had the Saw franchise, which I think is a great franchise. I would prefer Saw over fucking anything to do with like Paranormal Activity or The Conjuring, um, Insidious, shit like that. But Saw to me is more of like detective crime horror movies. Um, but you still had attempts at it. Like obviously, things like Hatchet. Even in the years 2000 and forward, that's pretty much the beginning to like all the Resident Evil movies. So Resident Evil and their film franchise was just starting to take off. Obviously, based on the video games, which were very successful at the time. Um, but you still had some attempts at trying to bring back the slasher genre. It's part of the reason why I love Eli Roth, Rob Zombie, and Quentin Tarantino so much for their horror movies and what they tried to do with the horror genre, because all of their movies are pretty much slashers. Eli Roth has dabbled in like some other things like Cabin Fever and whatnot. Um, Obviously, Green Inferno, which is a cannibal film. Again, I love the cannibal stuff and horror. Um, but his recent movie, Thanksgiving, is a tribute and it's an homage, basically the slasher genre of the 70s and the 80s. So like I said, I really love when you have those kind of things. And of course, later on, like in the 2000s, they tried to do the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remakes, which I actually really liked the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remakes. I like 2003, and I believe there was another one around 2005 or 2006. I know Jessica Biel is in one of those, and she was great. But the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remakes, honestly, I think are better than the original one and two. And that's saying a lot because I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 because of two reasons. Caroline Williams and also Joe Bob is in that movie. Obviously, little mention to Joe Bob there. Shout out to Joe Bob and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Um, Even Quentin Tarantino tried to bring back the slasher genre when he did a double feature with Robert Rodriguez for the Grindhouse double feature. His movie was Death Proof, and it's basically like a double-sided coin with that movie, and that's part of the reason why I really like it so much. I tried to put a watch along on the channel not too long ago, but YouTube just wouldn't allow it. Hopefully one day I can watch that movie with you guys and talk about it more. The thing I love about Death Proof from Quentin Tarantino, the first half of the movie is basically shot from the killer's perspective, and it's kind of like in a violent nature before there ever even was a violent nature. And I think that's why Quentin Tarantino did such a great job with that movie, because this is before In a Violent Nature even ever fucking existed. Obviously, and now that we're talking about the slasher genre, In a Violent Nature has also kind of become a successful slasher film recently. Um, but the second part to Death Proof is shot from the victim's perspective. Okay, so you have the first part where it's the killer's perspective, and then the second part where it's the victim's perspective, shot from the girl's point of view. And Death Proof is an amazing movie. It was not successful for Quentin Tarantino, which is why he stated before he doesn't want to do horror movies anymore, and he's kind of just walked away from the genre also. But I do know that he works a lot with Eli Roth, and he tries to produce a lot of his movies too. And Eli Roth is a fucking amazing horror director, I feel like. And the second thing that I wanted to talk about is you also heard how they were kind of playing around with the idea of Danielle Harris's character, Jamie, becoming the next Michael Myers in the franchise. Okay, now there's little bits and pieces throughout Halloween 4 and 5 that are kind of setting that up in a way, but they never really go full throttle with it. In Halloween 6, they were talking about how the character Jamie was pretty much just going to have Michael Myers' baby or some shit like that. And that's kind of why Danielle Harris walked away from that movie as well. I don't fucking blame her. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers is absolutely terrible. I rank it below Halloween Resurrection and just above Halloween Ends. So, like I said, 3 of the worst fucking Halloween movies in the franchise. But it really would have been interesting to see the direction of Danielle Harris kind of becoming the next Michael Myers in a way and the next slasher in the Halloween franchise. I think that would have been fucking really cool to see, actually. And also, another thing I was thinking about recently when I was watching the 2018 Halloween by Danny McBride from his trilogy, why isn't there a movie that actually combines the character Jamie Lee, her Laurie Strode, and Danielle Harris as Jamie? Why doesn't that movie ever exist? If Jamie is technically the niece of Jamie Lee Curtis and Laurie Strode, why don't we have a movie finally bringing those two together? Like, I would love to fucking see that, actually. A movie with Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode and Danielle Harris as Jamie, both of them together in the same Halloween movie, I think would be fucking incredible to see. And just, the whole story behind it and everything, how it will, affect Michael Myers and the franchise in general. I think that would be really cool for a Halloween movie. But of course, in Halloween 2018, from the Danny McBride trilogy, they basically say that movie takes place after the original Halloween from 1978 by John Carpenter, and it erases pretty much the entire history of the franchise. So it's a pretty much just right after Halloween 1 kind of movie, which I think is very stupid because you can tell that they're fucking years apart and everything. I just didn't really like that reasoning behind Halloween 2018 from the Danny McBride trilogy. Like I said, for me, I need a Halloween movie where it has Jamie Lee as Laurie Strode and Danielle Harris as Jamie. They're both in the movie together, and you both get to see how they affect Michael Myers and the story. So for me, my favorite genres in horror, I love slasher movies. Those are my top favorite all time. After that, I would say cannibal films. Anything with cannibals, I absolutely love, whether it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Hills Have Eyes, The Green Inferno. And then I also really love classic horror, classic gothic horror, like the Universal stuff, where it's Dracula, the Wolfman. Anything with like vampires, werewolves, witches, black magic. I really love that kind of stuff. So for me, it goes the slasher genre, cannibal films, and then basically classic gothic horror, where it's like vampires, werewolves, witches.
There are people in this universe who believe that Halloween 5 is not only a decent movie, but the best of all the Halloween sequels. What? Now, being a student of abnormal psychology, I've looked into this.
And considering I just talked about like classic gothic horror, I fucking love the Underworld franchise, where it's basically talking about the vampire and the Lycan War, werewolves versus vampires, and this is way before fucking Twilight ever happened too, okay? Completely different from Twilight, but I fucking love the Underworld franchise too. And then if we're talking about superheroes, my favorite Marvel superhero is Blade, okay? And I've said before, I'm a Batman diehard fan, okay? I prefer DC over Marvel, especially nowadays. Marvel does not take any of their characters serious to me. They treat them all like fucking jokes. DC, on the other hand, it's Detective Comics, okay? Batman is always dealing with serial killers, murders, psychopaths, all that kind of shit. He's the world's greatest detective, okay? I love detective-style horror movies. So Batman is obviously my all-time favorite, but when it comes to Marvel, Blade is my favorite Marvel superhero. And then obviously, I like Hulk and Iron Man, Spider-Man, fucking Thor, X-Men I really like, but as I said before, I'm really more into like the DC stuff and the Batman stuff as opposed to Marvel, especially more so nowadays, just because, like I said, Marvel does not take any of their characters serious. DC is Detective Comics. Batman is the world's greatest detective, and he's always got much more dark and grimy kind of films, which I can really appreciate. So it's just, it's to each his own, if you will.
I've discovered that if you were around 14 years old in the year 1989, this would be the first Halloween movie that you ever saw. And if it's the movie that caused intense curiosity to go look at all the other Halloween movies, then it will always have a soft spot in your heart. Therefore, 100% of the people who regard Halloween 5 as a superb piece of filmmaking do so because they had nothing to compare it to at the time that they first saw it. All right, Darcy, you want to do 2 or 3 more of these Michael Myers physical invulnerability theories before we wind this baby up?
Sure. This one is Rondine and Charlotte. Go
Okay.
Panthers!
I think Michael was born unable to feel, a physical numbness, so he can't feel pain. Hence his seeming invulnerability and super strength. His inability to physically feel led to him simply feeling nothing. It's why he kills. It lets him feel something. Okay, well, I would call that the jalapeno theory. You know how old people don't have any taste buds, so they put jalapenos on everything? This is Michael Myers using murder as a jalapeno. And not a bad theory.
All right, I got one more. This one's a little complicated, though. It's from DC Kurtz of Pennsylvania.
Okay. Autism. I'm not joking. Michael's behaviors align well with a lot of autistic behaviors. In this case, the tendency towards compulsion, repetition, and ritual. I've always believed that Michael is trying to ritually reenact that first Halloween kill. The get-up is not a matter of convenience. It's Michael's attempt to replicate the clown costume from all those years ago. And the slow, stilted motion is him intentionally moving the way he moved back then. And that's why he no-sells everything, because he is so obsessively committed to his ritual that not even getting shot or stabbed or lit on fire will get him to break character. It's autistic hyperfixation. You know, once Jenny McCarthy gets a hold of this, she's going to say, well, see, Michael Myers was vaccinated at age 5. That's why he killed at age 6. So kind of a dangerous theory. At any rate, Michael Myers is now alone in the house with Jamie. Well, not totally alone because Loomis, we didn't see Loomis die. So Loomis is down but not out. But all her protection is gone. And it's just the two of them. So we're about to watch the conclusion of Halloween 5, sometimes called The Revenge of Michael Myers. And we're going to find out why the little girl is the solution to quenching his rage. Or maybe not, because we don't find out a lot of things in Halloween 5. It's not big on explanations, but here we go anyway. Roll the film. And I feel like we need a big celebration after this, because this is the end. You know, this is it. Yeah. So Yuki, is the piñata prepared? Did you get us the piñata?
Yes.
Are we going Mexican or American? Or
It's a Mexican. The new
Okay.
thing, yes.
What's Japanese Halloween like?
Well, when I was a kid, there was no such a thing.
No?
No.
They didn't do Halloween?
No.
Trick-or-treating? No. But then last year, I happened to be in Japan during Halloween season. And the first time I saw Japanese Halloween, that was huge. Really? It's bigger than one in New York. It's bigger than New York? Yes. Tokyo is bigger than New York?
I was there for Halloween a couple of years ago. It was amazing.
You were in Tokyo for Halloween?
Yeah.
Like Tokyo Halloween is a big thing.
It's amazing, right? It's huge, right?
And people trick or treat on the trains.
Train and
People ride on the trains in their costumes. I've read a little bit about it. So everybody puts on a costume. They jump on the trains to party.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're not doing the Japanese version, but do you have a piñata?
Yes, we have.
Okay, good. Yuki Nakamura, ladies and gentlemen, the Tokyo Cowboy, greatest art director working today.
For sure.
You know what a piñata is, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good.
Why was you?
Yuki. One of the assistants here on the last drive-in with Joe Bob, getting together a piñata for the Day of the Dead Halloween Hootenanny Halloween special. This is it, final episode, and wow, apparently there's a big Halloween celebration in Tokyo, Japan. Maybe even bigger than the Halloween celebration in New York, which is kind of saying a lot. It's probably friendlier than the one in New York, but I don't know. If you're ever in Japan for the Halloween season, let me know. Let me know how that is. Me, I love the Halloween season all around the world. Spooky season, it's always holiday. It's always the Halloween holiday when you're with me, you know what I mean? So every day is Halloween. But it's amazing to hear some of these stories from foreign places. Yuki mentioning how big, Halloween is today. When he was growing up, it wasn't really a thing that they celebrated. The Tokyo Cowboy. Celebrating Halloween every year in Tokyo, Japan now. Okay, and it looks like we've reached the end of Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Let's go through the end credits here, and we will listen to Joe Bob talk about the movie and his final thoughts.
Well, in that scene that should have been the end of the movie, in which Dr. Loomis lures Michael Myers into a metal net and shoots him with tranquilizers, and then he beats him to death with a 2x4, suffering a heart attack in the process and dying on top of Michael Myers. During that improbable scene, Donald Pleasance actually broke the nose of the stuntman, Don Shanks. That 2x4 was made of foam, but the non-foam side of it was synthetic plastic, what they call PVC. And nobody told Pleasance that he should only hit Shanks with the foam side. There are two interesting scenes before that. One is, of course, the famous laundry chute sequence, in which, in order to get those interior shots, Danielle Harris actually had to suspend herself against the sides of the laundry chute while the knife was repeatedly plunged through the metal underneath her. Now, they told her, of course, exactly where to stay so she wouldn't get hurt. If she had slipped, though, that was not exactly a responsible shot. And then there's the scene where she climbs into the coffin in a room full of lit candles wearing a crinoline dress, crinoline being highly flammable. So, yeah, that's apparently how they do it in Switzerland. The ending makes no sense at all because, first of all, you take Michael Myers to jail and you let him wear the mask in his jail cell? Since when do you take Michael Myers to jail? You kill Michael Myers at the end of each movie. You got to kill him. You don't need some lame plot device about a man in black with a weird wrist tattoo who shows up to spring Michael out of jail. You'd still have a Halloween 6 without doing that scene. This thing is just one big mess. Lowest grossing film in the series. Mustafa Akkad later admitted it was a bad idea to kill off the character of Rachel. Ellie Cornell ended up starring in video games and movies based on video games, notably House of the Dead. So, Darcy, come on over. I assume that we agree on Halloween 5?
Yeah, it's not good.
Okay. So all the things that are wrong with it, getting rid of Rachel, not making Jamie the killer, the ambiguity of that Tina character.
And let's just talk about this for a second, too. After Halloween 5, the next movie, Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, really fucked up. Not making Jamie or Danielle Harris the next killer in the franchise. Because here's the thing. Halloween 6 could have not only had Danielle Harris playing Jamie as the killer, but they also could have had Quentin Tarantino directing and writing the script. This is how bad Halloween 6 fucked up, okay? And that's why I put it below Halloween Resurrection, but just above Halloween Ends. Halloween Ends is the worst movie in the fucking franchise, in my opinion. But Halloween 6, you could have had a completely different reputation. You could have fucking had a completely different history. You could have had Danielle Harris as the killer, Jamie. You could have had Quentin Tarantino as the writer and director, but you didn't. You fucking wanted to fuck around. You wanted to give Michael Myers a child, and you ruined the franchise after that for a little bit of time. Because again, once Halloween 6 came out, that was pretty much the end to the slasher genre. So it came out basically mid-90s, which, yeah, around mid-90s to the late 90s. Again, we talked about that was pretty much the end of the slasher genre. You had some attempts after that, of course, obviously. One of my favorite movies of all time, horror movies especially, Freddy vs. Jason, came out in 2003. But again, you know, the horror genre in general was just kind of going a little bit of a different direction after the 90s. So Halloween 6, you could have had a completely different history, but you didn't.
You don't know if, is she the heroine or not? She dies for Jamie. Annoying supporting characters. Jamie screams too much. Nobody knows what the whole Man in Black thing is. If I left anything out,
it's not scary.
And not scary, yeah. And Hootenanny Girard gave a famous interview where they asked him exactly what were you going for, Dominique, when you did Halloween 5, and I think his answer kind of sums it up. The film is a question of cat and mouse, and we see the cat and we see the mouse. The mouse knows about the cat, and that cat is going after the mouse. And then there's a nervous pause, and then he says, "That's about it, I guess." So, any questions about this guy? I feel like we're ending on a downer here because we showed Halloween 5 last, But fortunately, we have the Halloween Hootenanny Pinata. And do you have any mailbag first?
I do. The mailbag is actually this beautiful handmade shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember that convention we were at in St. Joseph, Missouri?
St. Joseph. Yeah, I remember that well. That's actually Kansas City Crypticon.
Yeah.
Because we were in the rodeo arena or something. They had Sid Haig's 80th birthday party just a few weeks before, big celebration, just a few weeks before he died. God bless him. Mm-hmm. But we were up 24 hours for the. Well, when they it was the anniversary of the first last drive-in marathon, and so
we stayed up 24 hours live tweeting it again, but the convention was going on all weekend, so we were both really, really tired. And at the very end of the very last day, this very sweet guy came up to me and brought me this shirt that he had made just for me, because he said he had read the blogs I've written about social anxiety and depression and dealing with all of that. And he related to it very strongly with his own battles with that. So he wanted to make me this so that I could have it and look at it if I ever felt sad again. So I'd know that someone out there cared.
Who was it? Well,
sadly, much like your pussy stretcher incident, I lost track of his information, and I would love to send him a proper thank you because he's so kind and so sweet.
He came to the table though. He came to the signing table because I'm oblivious. I don't remember this at all.
We were both completely out of it.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that he's watching the show. I mean, if he's that attentive to your blogs, he's watching the show, so he'll let us know who he is.
Well, if he is, please contact us because I need to thank you for this because it's so sweet.
You told me one time Halloween makes you feel brave, though.
It does, yeah. There are times when I've been really in depression mode, but no matter what, Halloween.
Okay. Well, you can't be depressed now because you're gonna swat the piñata with a Donald Pleasant size 2x4. What kind of piñata destruction stick do we have, Yuki?
Pretty good.
No, that's Yuki. The idea is violence, okay? Concentrated power. We need a billy club or something, not a plastic straw from Arby's. So we're definitely not using that one.
All right.
And by the way, Yuki,
yes.
this piñata, it doesn't look very Mexican.
Okay, hold on, please.
Okay, we're supposed to be doing days of the. Okay. All right.
He just puts a sombrero on it.
Okay. All right. Pinatas. They have pinatas in Japan. You know, they're on trains. Okay. All right. Give me the big one. Give me the 2x4. Okay, Darth, take this.
All right.
Go for it.
Really?
Go for it. Yeah, hit the pinata. And then after you destroy the pinata, I don't know what's in the pinata, but after you destroy the pinata, just go for it. Just wail on it like
it's too pretty.
You know, like I said something bad about Halloween 3. Just hit it hard.
That'll fucking do it.
You hadn't quite got it. You got to hit it again.
Yeah.
Hit it again.
All right.
Oh. All right.
For Halloween
What
3.
did they put Lone Stars in the? Oh my God. Okay.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Calm down. All right. That's what we like on the last drive-in. Violence.
All
right.
Halloween 3.
Oh, a young boy in an Indian tribe goes up to his father named Wild Wind one day, and he asks him, "Father, why is my sister called Swift Pony?" And the father says, "Well, because, my son, she was conceived on a day when your mother and I had been riding on a horse together." And the boy considers this for a moment, and he says, "Well, Father, why is my brother called Fearless Serpent?" And the father says, "Well, because he was conceived just after your mother and I had been running away from a poisonous snake." And the boy looks kind of confused, and he gets very quiet. And so the father eventually asks him, "But why all these questions, broken condom?"
Dude.
Okay, and that has been the Halloween Hootenanny Halloween specials on The Last Drive-In Season 5 2019 with Joe Bob Briggs. Now, as I said, we still have a remaining 4 Halloween specials left in the month, so we will do another 4 streams later on after this. Not today, of course, but later on in the month. As I said, today is October 11th, 2024, so hopefully you guys are going to check out that Terrifier 3 and enjoying it. I know I'm going to watch it for my birthday movie at the theater this year, so I'm definitely excited about that. The next time we stream will probably be on Tuesday next week, because tomorrow we have Saturday college football. Sunday, I'm probably going to check out a few NFL Sunday games. And then Monday, my Buffalo Bills are actually playing another team that I like, the New York Jets. All right, the Battle of New York, AFC division rival, if you will. So it'll be the Buffalo Bills versus the New York Jets. My Buffalo Bills are 3-2 right now. We've had some pretty heartbreaking losses over the past couple weeks, but we're hoping to turn things around. I definitely see a lot of potential in this team. And hopefully Monday night we can walk away with a W in the Battle of New York against the Jets. So that is kind of my schedule coming up. Like I said, Tuesday we will do another stream here on The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob, another Halloween special. And be on the lookout for those Dead Space remake gameplays too. I've been doing that. And also next week on October 18th, my official birthday, October 18th, I'm going to play the Silent Hill 2 remake. So I'm definitely excited for that too. I love the Silent Hill franchise. I place it up there obviously with like Resident Evil and stuff. We have a lot of Resident Evil gameplays here on the channel. So I'm really looking forward to playing Silent Hill 2 remake. I've been avoiding all the spoilers, I've been avoiding like all the gameplays and shit like that. Same thing I'm trying to do with the Terrifier 3 movie is just, if people say that it's great, that's good enough for me, and I'll check it out and decide for myself. But ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and goblins, witches and wizards, vampires and werewolves, thank you so much for joining me for The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob, the Halloween Hootenanny Halloween specials. Your viewership, your support means so much to me. It really does. Thank you for checking out the channel. Thank you for hanging out with me. I hope you are having a wonderful, spooky season so far. And hopefully your Halloween is also filled with spookiness. and horror. A lot of scary things going on this season. So hopefully you enjoy yourselves. Until next time, peace, God.